can you hear me? Show small active speaker video. Fernando, can you hear me?
Hello?
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, Susanna. Good morning. Yeah, I apologize. I could not hear you, but everything's well now.
Oh, good.
Also,
how are you this morning?
I'm doing just great. Thank you for all the effort. I think the technical issues are always a situation, but thank you for working on this.
Yeah, you're welcome, and thank you. I know it's gonna be a great panel, but it's kind of it's a lot of fits and starts to get it in.
Yeah, no, I understand. I see Alana and are still also joining the
There's
webinar.
Alana.
Yeah, there's Alana. And I can't see them, but I can see the screen.
The name.
So, yeah, the name. Also.
Yeah.
Okay, it seems like everything's going well now.
Okay. So Greg is in too. I can't see anymore. I can just see you, and now I can't even see Alana anymore.
Yeah, I can't even see Alana. I see Aristeo is still.
Aristeo is there?
Yeah, but I cannot hear him. I was just asking for our people from technical support because I couldn't hear you, but now I have solved the issue myself, so okay.
Yeah. Great. Well, so Alana's in, and the others will, I assume, will be joining. So let's just start. And Alana, I hope you can hear us. Excuse me. You're muted. But we'll just go ahead, and you're going to have to unmute yourself, figure out how to unmute Alana, and then we'll dive in. I hope you can figure that out. What lies ahead for NAFTA, the view from Canada, Mexico, and the United States. Hi, my name is Susan Burns, and I have the honor of moderating this panel. And I'm delighted to be here with my distinguished colleagues, and then I'll introduce each one of you. And I'm not inclined to read exactly from bios, but I will have spent some time with you guys before the presentation, and so I'll personalize. I'll hope to be able to personalize a little more. So, and I'll do a little intro. I mean, there's a lot in the media lately now. Trump is throwing Canada under the bus as well for their milk,
Yeah.
the milk thing. So I have a couple of quotes that I'll read to start, and then we'll get into Alana. What is it possible Donald Trump has threatened to obliterate NAFTA, saying it's very, very bad? And so is it possible, Alana, for Donald Trump or anybody in the United States, the executive branch, is it possible for the executive branch to completely abrogate an international treaty? And in this case, it's with 3 countries. And Alana is still on mute. Okay, great, thanks.
I think she just sent a message in the chat saying that she's not able to connect the camera, so she's trying to reconnect from another computer.
Okay. How come you can see the chat and I can't see the chat?
If you place the pointer just in the last below the screen, some icons appear there.
Ah,
You like invite participants, chat, and record.
got it. And she can't hear anything. Okay. How about the others? I don't see anything from the others. Okay, now I hear somebody. Alana. Hello. Aristeo's here.
Yeah, he's back.
Uh-huh.
Oh, but he's also sending a message describing some technical problems.
Oh, God. Well, do you want to run through yours? I can see Aristeo. Hi.
Can you hear us, Aristeo? Hello.
Hello.
Hey, there he is.
Yes, hola.
¿Cómo estás?
I can hear you. Hey, hello.
Hi, you can hear us?
Yes, now I can hear you. Sorry.
Okay,
Hey,
that's great.
bravo. Oh, what a clear connection, too.
Yeah, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Well, after these technical difficulties, we finally made it. Sorry, I don't know if you already started.
So I think we'll just move here. Let me just, Alana just sent a message to send to a different email. And I'm going to ask. Okay, so what we're going to do, I think, is so when Alana is able to connect, we'll connect her. I mean, we can go back to her slide, but she's going to be talking about if there is authority for unilateral abrogation of an international treaty. In other words, can President Trump really deliver on his promise to do away with NAFTA, the very, very, very bad deal? Somebody's got a lot of traffic. And then Aristeo, whoops.
Yes, I have just a question here because I understand that the outline indicates that I have to talk about some different issues here. But I noticed that the economic relationship aspect has been included here. So just wanted to see if we're going to follow up the outline, or it's going to be this that I have to.
Well, I think you can interject other issues. We just wanted to keep the slides down. Everybody gets 2 or 3 slides, so we didn't want to have a slide intensive presentation. So however you want to incorporate the other components is good.
All right. Basically, just to follow up on the same idea that Nelana just described in the previous slides, I will just mention, make a very brief comments on the case of Mexico's experience with respect to unilateral terminations. We don't have any experience as such, but we have some precedents with respect to the withdrawal of the termination request to terminate the FTA in Bolivia and Venezuela a few years ago. So those are precedents that happened with Mexico and are along the idea that we're trying to explain here. So basically, it would be very short to say there's no precedent in the case of Mexico terminating an FTA, but we have this couple of situations that happened a few years ago with respect to free trade agreement. So that's something I would add up here.
Good.
Okay.
Yes, great.
Okay. So I will change this in the next email that I send you. We'll adjust these as slides and substitute it for the ones that I just mentioned.
So we also want you to talk about the economics.
Okay. Well, I can explain.
Can you?
Yes, I mean, I can briefly describe these ones, and I don't see any problem. Should I add the slides that I just mentioned before these ones, or after, just to follow up from the Elena's ideas?
Yeah, I think we can incorporate from before, or I'll just add one slide probably before this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll add it right before this.
Okay. And then we will jump into the economics page. There's not too much.
Perfect.
Everything is there, but I will adjust my presentation to this sequence.
Okay. Because I think that economic impact is important for people to understand.
Sure.
And like what, that's Trump keeps saying this America First thing, but if you're really saying America First, you want to do things that are beneficial.
No,
and if we hurt Canada and Mexico, it doesn't help the United States. It's not, I mean, it's not like any country is an island anymore. So.
Right. Okay. Yeah. It's okay. I will work on a couple of ideas to mention when you show these slides.
Okay.
Okay.
So you didn't submit these slides?
Well, I sent these slides, but it was a part of the whole package or information that I share with you to share with the rest of the audience. But it was not the slides I meant to include in these presentations. But it's okay. You can keep them, and I'm just going to.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Don't worry.
I know Renee was having a hard time because everybody didn't exactly follow the outline, so
don't worry, it's okay.
It was hard for him to put it
and
together.
I appreciate that Renee tried to do their
best.
So it's okay. I will just try to adjust.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's see if Alana's in. So is that what you have to say today?
Sorry?
So you want me to move to the next slide?
Yes, the next slide. I think it's the same thing on the economic side.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Whoops.
There's a kind of error in the graph, so I will have to send this again. So basically, I mean, you can see the increment of trade as NAFTA entered into force is quite substantial in terms of trades between three countries. So it speaks for itself. But basically, it's a proof that NAFTA has been worked in the three countries. Right?
Okay.
I just have to make some adjustments to the info that is there because I just noticed some problems.
You know what? I'm going to send you the PowerPoint, and you can add your slides and send it back to me.
I have it. Actually, I have it. Renee shared it with us. Oh.
I did make a couple of changes, but that's okay.
Okay. Send it.
See, down here on the right, I added names so that I can keep track of who's talking.
Excellent. This one, I'm not so sure if I would like to have it, but okay, just in the meantime, just let me think. I mean, the first two ones are great. This one is more focused on Canada, so let me just think about this one, but we can leave it for now there.
Okay.
Right?
And then from yours, we move into Fernando. So here, I just want to say, you'll see this. Where's this photo from? If anybody has another photo that isn't subject to copyright that we can use, please send it to me, because this one was lifted from a news article, I think, or it was off the internet. So that's a copyright violation unless we get permission to use it.
Okay.
So I need a different picture. I love the picture. It's a great find, but I can't use it. Hey, who's there? Hola.
Hi.
All right.
Renee's here, so it was a great timing to address the issue of the picture.
Yeah, perfect.
You know what? Let me go out and see if our people from IT and design team can draft something similar.
Oh, perfect.
So
yeah, it's a great find. You did a really good job finding it. I just don't want to do anything.
I thought that because it was for education purposes, that wouldn't be a problem. We're not.
Well, we're not
but no, I agree with you.
We're not an educational institution. Or is the ABA a nonprofit?
It's nonprofit, yes.
Oh, I have to double check that. I thought it was just educational institution.
Okay. No, but you know what? Let's keep it safe, and I'll ask them to see if they can do something.
Okay.
And I'll share it with everyone.
Okay, sounds good.
So I just wanted to drop by, say hi, and have to run again. Thanks.
Okay.
Gracias, René.
See you next week.
See you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so Fernando, if one party to NAFTA leaves, we're gonna talk about what are the implications for each country. So if the U.S. decided to pull out, or decided to terminate NAFTA, what would the fallout to Mexico be, or how would Mexico respond?
Yeah, thank you, Susan. Yeah, that's a very important subject. What's the future of NAFTA from the perspective of Mexico? That's a very difficult question right now. It's maybe more unpredictable than the result of the last Super Bowl by the last victory by Patriots. But we have to address this. This is the subject of the presentation. So I will go ahead. Even though I think the end result will be renegotiation of NAFTA, of course, as you were mentioning, all the options are on the table. So what could go wrong from the Mexican perspective? Three main factors we see. First is political pressure. After all the statements and all the claims that NAFTA it's not good for any of the countries, especially for the U.S. There has been a consensus by all the Mexican actors, the Congress, the government, the press, people, and they want Mexico to be treated with dignity. So there's a lot of political pressure for Mexico to prove that NAFTA will be renegotiated in a fair process. That's aspect number one that could go wrong. If another fight begins, if another fight of statements begin, that could affect a lot the ability of Mexico to reach an agreement. What's the second aspect? We see that a border tax, either in the form of an income tax or a duty tax on goods coming from Mexico, could be a factor that could lead to termination from this country's perspective. Why? Because the secretaries and even the president have been very vocal in the sense that if a border tax is authorized, it doesn't matter the form of the border tax. It can be in the form of a duty, of income tax mechanics that affect those companies importing goods from Mexico. They will not continue with the renegotiation of NAFTA. So that's another aspect that we see as a problem for the renegotiation. And then the time that the negotiations will take. That's the third factor. We will have presidential elections in 2018, and there are many candidates who are already taking the flag to say the NAFTA is also hurting Mexico, etc. So unless NAFTA is renegotiated before the end of 2017, the political factor, the election factor could become an important aspect for the renegotiation. But going back to the main question, what would be the response by Mexico in case of NAFTA termination? Well, the government has been clear, has not had any trouble expressing that they will, of course, address and implement a tax reform. First, to implement a tax similar to the whatever border tax the U.S. wants to implement. And second, of course, to eliminate any preferential duty to the U.S. And that takes us to the rules of the WTO. That will take us to the most favored nation rules. What will happen if NAFTA is terminated? Well, based on these most favored nation rules, all the goods that come from the U.S. to Mexico will be subject to a duty rate ranging from 7% to 15% approximately, while on the other hand, goods going from Mexico to the U.S. Will be subject to a duty of ranging from 2.5% to 3%. So we can see a difference in the impact if NAFTA is terminated from the perspective of duties. Another response we will be expecting from Mexico is an adjustment to the maquiladora structure. Mexico won't hesitate, it has done it in the past, to provide a lot of income tax incentives to the maquiladora structures, to the multinational companies manufacturing in Mexico, so the income that is taxed in Mexico is just a very small part, and basically they are able to locate the taxation of this income in the U.S. or in other parts of the world, depending on the origin of the investment. So that's another adjustment that we are expecting Mexico to do. Something that we have to take in consideration also is that if NAFTA is terminated, the Article 303 will be no longer in effect. What does it mean? Under Article 303 of NAFTA, Mexican companies manufacturing here in Mexico for subsequent export of the finished goods must pay duties for all non-NAFTA materials or components that are incorporated into these products. However, the reason for this is exclusively the existence of Article 303. So if NAFTA is terminated, Mexico will no longer be subject or obligated to charge duties for non-NAFTA origin materials, and that could also affect the result of the implications in the United States. Finally, in connection to this subject, we feel that in case NAFTA is terminated, there will be a massive relocation of facilities into the U.S. They will go back to the U.S. because there are some sectors that are not as sensitive and can face the termination of NAFTA and can continue manufacturing in Mexico. But we see a lot of industries that are sensitive, and we would expect a significant amount of relocation into the U.S. for manufacturing companies in case of termination. Not renegotiation, but termination. And finally, related to the aspect of termination of NAFTA, we have to remember that the only international mechanism for U.S. investors and Canada investors in Mexico to protect their investments from expropriations or discriminatory actions by the government is Chapter 11 of NAFTA. Other than that, you only have domestic law. So in case NAFTA is terminated, I think that would have a negative impact on the U.S. investors who would not be as protected as they currently are based on the mechanism of Chapter 11 of NAFTA. So that's, in general terms, the scenario that we expect in case of terminations, Susan.
Great, thank you so much. I had myself on mute. So let's, Alana joined us, so let's go back to the very first slide on unilateral abrogation of the international treaty. Wait, Fernando, how do I pronounce your last name?
It's Holguin. Ideally, it's Holguin.
Holguin?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Say it one more time for me, please.
Holguin.
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 Holguin. We'll work on that at happy hour.
Yeah, that's perfect. Don't worry. Don't worry about that.
It's easier than Greg's name.
Yeah, I agree.
Alana.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
You sound like you're swimming, but that's okay.
Well, it's better than what I had before, which was a blank screen, and I couldn't.
Perfect now. Perfect.
So this is good. So who else is on? Is it the three of us, or is there another person?
We lost Greg in the transition, I think.
Okay.
Hi,
So,
Hi.
what was that, Greg?
No, that is, if you press on, I have an arrow here. If you press on this arrow, and I can see Aristeo.
So, in the interest of keeping us on close to a schedule, we have probably about 9 more minutes, 10 more minutes to get through this, because I don't want to hold you guys up for the whole time, but I just wanted us to get together to see how we could, this would work for us to go through. So do you want to go through part of your presentation, Alana?
Sure. I guess the first part is I start with the whether or not the executive, the executive branch could unilaterally rip up a NAFTA, the NAFTA.
Yeah, and the way I queued that up is could President Trump actually follow through on his threat to obliterate NAFTA? Does he have the ability to do that?
Probably not. There's a difference between, so I would go into the difference between what NAFTA is, which is a congressional executive agreement, versus, and I'm going to do a really abridged version so we can get through more stuff here. NAFTA is a congressional executive agreement as opposed to an international treaty. Congressional executive agreement is not in Article 1, Section 1 combined with Article 2, Section 2 statute. It's authorized by both the Commerce Clause, which confers on Congress the power to regulate commerce between foreign nations, as well as the executive power over foreign affairs. And since NAFTA, so the question becomes, who can terminate NAFTA? Since NAFTA is not just approved by, is not just created by the president and approved by 2/3 support of the Senate, NAFTA, as a congressional executive agreement, requires bicameral support of both the House and the Senate, a majority of both the House and the Senate.
Alana, I'm going to stop you right there for a minute. For those of our attendees who are not from the United States and not intimately familiar with our governing process, as all of us are from our fabulous grade school educations, can you talk about what bicameral approval means when you're talking about? Mm-hmm.
Sure. Bicameral approval means that both the House of Representatives and the Senate would needs to approve the agreement that was reached by the executive branch. Whereas a treaty, which only deals with international, for instance, defense issues, diplomacy issues. That is approved by 2/3 of the Senate.
Thank you.
So that's the difference between international, between bicameral approval, which is a congressional consecutive agreement which requires bicameral approval, and an international treaty which just requires approval by the Senate. And the reason that a congressional executive agreement seeks a congressional executive agreement is also different from an international treaty in that a congressional executive agreement deals with issues of commerce between countries, and as opposed to just diplomacy issues diplomacy issues and military defense issues that often come with an international treaty. So with that, a NAFTA, with that comes how do you break a congressional executive agreement versus a international treaty. There is precedent for a president to unilaterally abrogate an international treaty. However, there is no precedent for a president to unilaterally cancel or rip up a congressional executive agreement. And the reason for this is that the congressional executive agreement, which requires the bicameral approval, probably also requires a bicameral approval to change it or to repeal it. NAFTA, underlying NAFTA, the only reason that it can be in place in the United States is because of the Implementation Act. And because Congress approved the Implementation Act, both branches of the Congress approved the Implementation Act, it would seem that it needed repeal, and most scholars agree that it needed, in order to repeal NAFTA, you would need repeal of the Implementation Act, which would require bicameral approval, the bicameral support of the Congress. There's always the possibility that the president can issue an executive order and claim that NAFTA is now canceled. But if he does that, I'm guessing that there'll be a strong contentious battle in Congress, which will be taken to the Supreme Court as to whether or not the president can do this and has the power to do this without the support of Congress. So there is a chance that NAFTA itself cannot. There's a good possibility is that if the president tries to issue an executive order or end NAFTA pursuant to its own provisions, there's a good possibility that you'll get a strong modicum of objection by both branches of Congress, which would come in and at least slow the process down to stop NAFTA. So we would be relying on both houses of the Congress and Supreme Court to prevent a unilateral hasty action by the executive branch.
Great, thank you. So without getting into the new composition of the Supreme Court, we'll move on to Aristeo, who is going to talk to us about his new slides.
Yep.
And then we had Fernando talking about what would Mexico do if there was a termination. Then we have Greg talking about Canada. And then Nick about the U.S. and U.S. priorities. Greg on Canada priorities. And Aristeo and Fernando on Mexico priorities. Do you want to talk on that briefly? And then I'll just say, as you're each talking, I'm thinking of questions to ask you, so I'm writing those down. So it's good. I'm glad we're doing this.
Well, I have not coordinated that part with Fernando, but Fernando, I don't know if you have some ideas, and then I can jump in.
Yeah, we could work these days and jump into each other presentations. Wouldn't mind at all.
So on the Mexico priorities, I thought you both were going to talk about it. Oh, but you guys can figure that out however you want.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to describe from the general point of view of from the policy point of view. I mean, our government has been clear as to what our intention, as Fernando mentioned, the Secretary of Economy has mentioned, what would be Mexico's ideals in the renegotiation, so we can try to put that in the slides. But basically, Mexico's position is that if a renegotiation of NAFTA will take place in the next months, our position would be that we have to build up on what we have on NAFTA, not to roll back all the benefits and development that we have got in the last 15 or more years, as shown in the previous slides. So that's the first point to find ways to improve what we have and not to roll back on the benefits that NAFTA has. And on specific issues, I mean, the U.S. has been proposing specifically to terminate with the tribunals on anti-dumping trade remedies, as you know. In this paper that was leaked a few days ago, that's the kind of the few specific things that the U.S. has been proposing. And I mean, I don't want to get into that detail as to if Mexico is going to support that changes or changes or not. I think that more broadly we would like to say that that's Mexico's position in general terms.
Okay. So maybe if you guys want to talk about, or we can do that when we meet, which we're meeting on Thursday.
Right. Yes.
Thursday at 4. I have it in my calendar.
I think it's at 4, right?
Yeah.
I still, correct me if I'm wrong, I still have a second participation basically at the end in connection to the scenario in case of renegotiation. I could address that there, but Aristeo, I feel that maybe you could jump in for this subject, but I'll leave it to you. You decide it.
You say that the slide that is shown right now?
Yeah, a slide that is shown right now.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Okay. Yeah, we can. Let me just add some few things, and I can share with you to see if it's okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Sorry about the technical issues, and
no problem.
Thanks for your patience. Thanks for your participation. I'm really, really looking forward to this. I think it's going to be a very dynamic panel, and I think we'll have a lot of good interaction.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks to you. Thanks for everything.
I look forward to spending time with you. The panel we did, Fernando and Alana, you weren't there in September, but it was really good. It was well attended, and it was a nice, don't you think, Aristeo, a really nice synergy among the panelists?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So, okay, everybody. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to meet with all of you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you. Take care.
Have a nice day.
Bye.
Bye, Alana.
Bye, guys. How do I turn this?